Hello world, it's Birdo Prey 5 Qapla. This is my 5 biggest nitpicks for Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 4, No-Win Scenario. Last week I was legitimately concerned if I could find 5 nitpicks worth discussing. This week I was concerned if I'd be able to narrow it down to only 5 nitpicks. There is so much wrong. As always, there are spoilers, so be warned. There was plenty to choose from, but at the moment, these are my 5 biggest nitpicks. Let's start, of course, with number 1.
You could look like anyone by now.
We have got to keep this quiet.
What?
The morale on this ship is already...
There is a saboteur on this ship.
Now, I'm not saying do nothing. I'm saying keep it quiet.
Morale? Morale on this ship?
What you talking about, Will?
I don't even know where to begin. From his fighting with Picard to his resignation to die live on the bridge a few minutes ago, all but confirming the crew is certainly going to perish. Now he's worried about morale? If anything, give the crew one last mission to keep them busy. Get back at the person who put them in this situation. That might actually improve morale. But it gets worse.
I could reinstate you, but you remaining in an unofficial capacity could work to our advantage. Understand?
Yes, Captain.
He won't even reinstate 7? Do you think the Changeling gives a crap if 7 is on official duty or not? The only explanation for this kind of writing is to tell us that Riker must be the Changeling, and any moment after she leaves, we'll see him turn into someone else. But now we know he isn't a Changeling, so how are we supposed to move on from this? The real William Riker is incapable of this level of incompetence. Number 2.
You're, 23, 24? Enjoy it while you can. I mean, it's your call.
Actually, there is something that might be of interest to you, given your travels. We were on a medical supply run to Metalis 4. It's a vile place. A real dump. I got stuck in a cargo hold with this Andorian who had a broken antenna.
Jameson? The first product placement in a prime timeline track, and it's Jameson Irish whiskey? Okay, as someone who used to work in the alcohol industry, it seems wrong. It feels dirty, but that's just an opinion. What isn't an opinion is that they were also super lazy. This is a standard 2021 bottle of Jameson, 2021 being the year this was actually filmed. Future bottles are going to look and sound different. 20 years ago, I personally worked on a project for a rum bottle whose label lit up and played music. It was called Qapla Rum.
The music is stored digitally and plays from a speaker in the bottom of the bottle. The revolutionary light display of the bottle's label, called electroluminescent phosphors, is paper thin. Each time the bottle is lifted, the song and dance will play once for 15 seconds and then shut off. The advanced battery will last at least 500 plays, and all the electronics are contained in a water-resistant chamber at the base of the bottle.
So I don't know what Jameson will look like in the year 2501, but I know what it won't look like. And there's another level to this scene, too. Jack asks not just for whiskey, but cheap whiskey. And Sir Patrick Stewart, the famously British actor, pulls out an Irish whiskey. And Dave Cullen applauded this? Well, I see what you did there, Patrick. And I know there were some Budweiser mentions in the JJ movies, but at least they had some futuristic looking bottles. And it made some sense as they filmed the engine room scenes in the Budweiser brewery itself. It wasn't just the biggest Trek insult to the Irish since Up the Long Ladder. Number 3.
Sometimes they leave behind like residue goo, like residue. You get a sample of that, you upload it to the computer, you have the ship scan for that son of a bitch.
Thank you, Captain.
The inclusion of the little picture of Rene Auberjonois and Odo's bucket on the pad almost makes up for the ridiculous statements about changelings leaving behind residue, which they most certainly did not in Deep Space Nine. If they did, finding changelings wouldn't have required phaser sweeps and blood tests. I am all for improved technology in the 20 plus years since the end of the Dominion War, but this isn't improved tech. This is more bad, or more honestly, lazy writing. Why not have tech that could be turned on that can prevent a shapeshifter from changing shape if one is suspected on being on board? Well, why can't ship systems scan for dead bodies stuffed into closets? But the biggest problem of all, and while I can maybe accept changelings will need a bucket, even though Odo didn't need a bucket, he only used it when he didn't have actual quarters, there is no explanation for this.
Where's it go?
That is the exact same bucket Odo used. A very unusual shape, color, pattern. You already gave us the member berry. This is just ridiculous. And it just so happens the room light where it's being stored has enough empty space to perfectly fit the bucket. Why wouldn't they just use a vase left out in the open where they could put some flowers in? And this way it wouldn't look suspicious. How did the bucket even get on the ship? Did the shapeshifter beam on board with it? If they're replicated on the ship, why not de-replicate it when they're not needed and replicate a fresh one every night, like I'm sure crew members do with plates, dishes, and forks? You know, this is how they could have fixed the bucket nonsense and did more product placement they are obviously so fond of. That's the ticket. Plus, if it's a dirty, oily bucket, that could just be that residue they're talking about. Finger licking good. Number 4. Like so many of the nitpicks this week, I honestly cannot believe my eyes and or ears when watching this stuff. What am I seeing here? Cutting her hand at her wrist? I thought it was an act of self-harm. It certainly looks like it's unpleasant, but then under the skin appears to be some kind of different skin. But then the act of cutting the human skin seems to let her entire hand fall off and turn into a changeling? And then the changeling does, well, it does whatever this is.
Unfortunately, the starship-faring Jack Crusher couldn't escape the center of the gravity well.
All else is expendable. Your ship, your people, you.
I will pursue.
Good.
A flying skull of doom, who is apparently the boss of her, ordering her around? I thought this was a separate creature from her, but it's clearly a form of communication with someone or something else. The thing that's giving her orders is at no risk of harm when it orders her to go back into the nebula. And then when it's over, it just rejoins her body? And she does this in full view of her crew? It's extremely bizarre. And part of me feels like this is a legitimate mystery that I look forward to being solved. As ludicrous as the choices made here are, it's at least something new. But then, Terry Matalas himself, the writer and showrunner of the season, starts tweeting out to everyone wondering what the F they just saw, that Vadic is just a changeling. Vadic is just a changeling, but she's got scars on her face, she smokes, she uses a knife when she could just let a piece of her drop off. Vadic better not just be a changeling. And like in earlier seasons of Picard, where we find out ourselves, they come to a fork in the road, and neither path can ever lead to a satisfactory conclusion, we're at another fork again. If Vadic is a changeling, then she isn't behaving like one at all, even in private when she should be. And if Vadic isn't a changeling, then the showrunner is lying to everyone when he could have just ignored the question. This is exactly the kind of things fans should be speculating about, coming up with theories, and looking forward to see who will be the closest with the real answer. But when the showrunner himself steps in and tells us, this is just this, don't look too much into it, all I can think is, don't waste your time, there's no payoff. And if there's no payoff, why do it? And then there's the elephant in the room. Number 5.
And we inched our way home. No senses, no visuals. 10 fucking grueling hours.
Ignoring the nonsense of having no visuals in a shuttle with a window, and ignoring the absurdity of being able to inch their way thousands of miles through space to a ship they can't see or communicate with. The quintessential issue here is Picard's casual F-bomb. I doubt anyone watching this video will find this news, but this line was not written by the writers. This was ad-libbed by Patrick Stewart himself. That doesn't make it better. In fact, frankly, it makes it worse. Patrick Stewart hated Jean-Luc Picard. The Jean-Luc of the next generation, anyway. The Picard I looked up to. The Picard I respected. The Picard that commanded respect. It was a job to him, one he couldn't wait to get away from. He got to be an action star in the next-gen movies, shooting Tommy guns, driving go-karts, singing Gilbert and Sullivan while flying shuttles. But the movies were few and far between, 2 hours with 2 years between them, or more. It was easy to imagine these were the exceptional missions we had the privilege of viewing. That thinking can't explain the Picard television series, however. Hearing Picard utter the totally unnecessary F-bomb was disappointing more than anything. When you talk to people, even actors, what is the first thing they think of about Star Trek? It's often about family. Early memories of watching with their parents, or parents watching with their children, or adults watching with their older parents. Star Trek is best shared across generations. No pun intended. Congrats to Sir Patrick Stewart. In one word, he did more to demoralize those of us fighting to restore Trek to what we remembered than Alex Kurtzman or Terry Matalas could do with an entire season of scripts. I don't want to end on that depressing note. Maybe, just maybe, William Riker is still in the holodeck. We can only hope.
Captain, perhaps it would be best if we discuss this.
Shut up!
Beg your pardon.
I said shut up! As in close your mouth and stop talking.
Or shall we end this charade?
As you wish, Commander Riker. The charade is over.